Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. The OP in our first story was unlucky to have a neighbor who was a beggar and turned out to be ungrateful. We'll tell you more after a short pause. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Don't want your free duck eggs, so I'll just toss them in the garbage. My chickens and ducks were laying more eggs than I could use up, so I decided to give 2 dozen to my next-door neighbor who had been repeatedly asking for some. I don't separate my duck eggs from my chicken eggs, so there were about a handful of duck eggs distributed through the 2 cartons. When I gave them to her, I gave her the heads up that there were 4 or 5 duck eggs in there and that they were slightly bigger ones, but they taste just like chicken eggs. She immediately got a disgusted look on her face and told me, "Ew, duck? I've never had duck eggs. I'll just toss them." I told her I could simply take the duck eggs back with me since me and my family love duck eggs and I don't want to see them wasted. She refused to give them back to me and started walking away saying, "No, I'm just going to toss them." End of conversation. I was so flabbergasted. I literally live a few steps away from her and it'd have been no problem carrying 5 duck eggs back. I was so offended that I haven't given her any more eggs since. She kept asking for more, and it got to the point that she confronted my parents when they came to visit about me never having any more eggs for her when I easily had 2 dozen for her last time. The funny thing is, my parents don't even speak English, and she knows this, and she approached them just so I could hear her screeching outside about her wanting more eggs. Every time my brother visits, he tells me the crazy next-door lady wants him to tell me that she wants more of those eggs. I'm also convinced she sold those duck eggs to friends or customers instead of giving them back to me. She's notorious for stalking rich neighborhoods for furniture they put out during bulk garbage collecting days and reselling them as antiques. I've been in her house once, and it was like every filthy hoarder's house I've seen on reality TV. When she gave me a tour of her place, she was so eager to try and sell me anything I stared at for a second too long, even a used napkin if it could net her a cent of profit. In fact, I did buy an antique chair from her to try and establish friendliness when I just moved in, but I quickly had to bag it and put it out for bulk collection when I found out the chair was mostly eaten away by termites inside. My other neighbors told me they saw her drag the chair back to her garage and proceed to try and resell it. I should have listened when the previous tenants warned me that she was crazy. I thought they were just joking. We haven't spoken since she realized I wasn't going to give her any more eggs or vegetables from my garden, and she's now gone back to letting her dog poop on my lawn and not picking it up, which she had agreed not to do after I talked to her about this when I first moved in. And our second story. Entitled mom tries to steal her husband's life insurance money after abandoning the family for 7 years. This is not my story, but I feel it's a story that should be worth mentioning. Korea has its own share of deranged and crazy people, and here's an example. EM equals entitled mother, GD equals the good dad, 3 sons equal GD's 3 sons. The story was all over Korean media back in 2016. But it begins with EM leaving her low-income family in 2009, claiming, "All of you ruined my life. I'm going to live the way I want." Her husband, the GD, was devastated at first, but was determined to raise the TS right. He put them in foster care facility and worked his butt off at a construction site to pay for their housing, school, and even allowance. GD was very polite and thanked the staff at the foster home. The foster care eventually made him not pay for the housing. It was hard, but the TS loved GD, were growing up to be gentlemen like their father. EM did not contact her family, nor showed up to check up on TS the entire time. Then in 2016, disaster strikes. GD was killed by a drunk driver. TS were sad, but decided to settle with life insurance that was left to them, around $130K. Was in won, but I decided to convert them for your convenience, to get their own place. And then EM shows up after 7 years of abandoning her family, demanding all of the money to be handed to her. Her official claim was that she left home because of her husband's abusive nature and was scared to find her children because she might have run into him. EM actively contacted TS telling them, "I'm so sorry for walking out on you guys," or I want to set things straight from now on. These statements actually got her a little bit of support from the public, but what TS said next completely labeled her as a monster. TS said that EM sent them multiple text messages that are passive-aggressive, such as, "I am the new household head, therefore the money belongs to me. You guys don't need that much money, and it's all for your own good." This eventually went to court, and EM actually won. The decision was due to the fact that the eldest of the TS was only 19 at the time, so he was too young to have that much money. It was legal, and the fact that EM and GD never filed divorce papers. The court settled with EM taking the share of the money, around $45K. After the decision, TS gave her glare of anger and hate and said, "Keep your money. We'd rather live as orphans than live with you." The lawyer who represents TS said that EM came to him first to reinstate herself in the family name and immediately asked how much was the insurance money. He also said that even after getting $45K, EM wasn't satisfied and is making a bunch of excuses and claims to get the remaining money. He added she even hired a top-notch lawyer. And our last story. They paid 5 times more than my first settlement offer. 5 years ago, my little consulting firm took a new client, an e-commerce company which sells DIY tools, inflatable, above-ground pools, wood fences, etc. In the end, they sell things that can weigh a few grams or 1.5 metric ton, about 3,000 pounds. One day, I was walking through account payable office when I saw the courier monthly invoice laying on the desk. Just to give you an idea, the company fulfilled and shipped something like 200 to 250,000 orders per year, so every invoice had more than 10,000 records. May to September invoices were well above 20,000 and sometimes 30,000. Every shipment was detailed in a single line record that showed a bunch of data like date of shipping, order number, tracking number, place of delivery, actual weight, volumetric weight, base price, and surcharges. Volumetric weight is the weight calculated by a formula which multiplies volume, in cubic meters, by a constant 300 kilogram, but every courier has its own, and they use volumetric weight instead of actual weight to bill shippings. Just in the first records, I noticed something odd. A couple of orders billed something like €1,000, weighed a few kilograms, but had a volumetric weight of 2,000 kilograms. That's 4,000-ish pounds. Well, I knew the company was selling bulky goods, but those usually weighed a lot. My sixth sense told me something was wrong, so I searched the orders in the database and I was right. The orders were for some electric DIY tool, a drill and something else, and there was no chance they could have a volumetric weight of tons. I talked with management and asked if they knew anything about this discrepancy. Nope, they told me, but the average cost of shipping per order was consistent throughout last year's, so I shouldn't have had to worry. In my head, it was a big no. I talked with top executives and agreed to be invited to the upcoming quarter meeting with the courier. A couple of weeks later, I attended the meeting but stayed almost silent for a couple of hours. When they were almost done, I just passed a little dossier to everyone. The first sheets were a copy of a few pages of their last invoice where I'd highlighted some records, and behind there was the copy of corresponding orders with goods descriptions. Obviously, weights didn't match. I pointed that those were just a few examples of the billing errors I found. I acknowledged that errors were in favor of both parties. Sometimes they billed less than they should have, but the sample I analyzed 1 month, about 15,000 shippings, gave me a 5% average overbilling. To cut it short, I asked them a 5% discount on previous year invoices, in total 100 to 125k euros, and a review of contract terms taking out volumetric weight, surcharges, etc. Obviously, they asked for my files, which I immediately sent, and we agreed to discuss it in a week. The week passed, and I got an email from the area manager. Basically, they rejected my offer because they did their math, taking into account the last 3 years, and I was wrong. On the contrary, their company underbilled thousands of shipments, but since my client was very valuable to them, they wouldn't ask anything. Last but not least, they were willing to send me the shipping data from the last 3 years, more than 600,000 single records, each one made of more than 40 single information, if I really wanted to do a complete analysis. Needless to say, this didn't make a good impression with company executives and owners because I'd already told them I was damn sure they were owed money. It took me a month to clean 36 CSV files full of data I didn't need, involve IT to extract from the company database what I needed, basically the weight of the articles of every single order and their destination, and build a model that, taking into account contract terms, could estimate the precise cost of shipping for each and every order. I can't explain how difficult it was. Mind that the shipping costs mainly depended on weight, region, state, and province, county, but there were 3 different surcharges and a crap ton of exceptions. Small towns in the Alps, islands, orders with multiple shippings, full or partial returns, etc. It was excruciating and painful going through all that, double-check every result that showed an odd peak, etc. On top of this, I had to buy a more powerful laptop because mine took too much time to apply tens of thousands of formulas. All in all, it took me more than 2 months to get a correct evaluation, just in time for the next quarter meeting, but this time just the CEO knew what I'd found because I had to get him involved as well as a lawyer. I was the first to speak, and it went more or less in this way. Hey, do you remember that when you turned down my settlement offer because we did our math, you also said I could go through 3 years of shippings if I really would? Well, it took me 2 months, but I actually did, and guess what? You were damn right. In fact, your company did not overbill my client by 5% on average. I said this with a calm, low voice, trying to take some sort of defeat in my eyes. But by 10%, period. I've just sent you an email with a link to download half a gigabyte of files, and as I know you'll want to do a sample check, the IT team created an account so you can access the database and check every single order, its articles, weight, etc. Obviously, the previous offer is no longer on the table. Now we demand a full refund of 600-ish thousand euros plus the full cost of my work within 10 days, and since we're confident you were in good faith, a complete review of the contract. Otherwise, the person next to me, who happens to be a lawyer, will file a civil lawsuit demanding damages, interest, and legal expenses, along with a fraud report to prosecutor. As far as we're concerned, this is the end of today's meeting, but I'm sure you'll get back once you've actually done your math. A week later, they got back and offered $550K plus a full refund of my cost, and in 1 month, my client had a brand new and much simpler contract without volumetric weight and surcharges, tens of exceptions, etc. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.